Primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Grex Kondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your whole-net news service providing in-depth coverage of the latest stories from every sector of the galaxy. Now, your news segment rundown for January 15th, 2023. 99 problems, but a bad batch ain't one. We now go live to the CWN newsroom to join your host, Ben Granadadam, to discuss the latest episode of Bad Batch.
All right, thank you very, very much, Grex. Welcome, everyone, to another week of Core World News. It's great to have you all here. We're live again. Well, not live yet, but we're doing a video version of this. So hello to everyone on YouTube who's checking out this. And yeah, to all our regular podcast listeners, thanks so much. As always, it's good to talk to you. We got some Bad Batch to talk about this week, guys. Episode 3. Woo. Yeah. Of season 2, Solitary Clone. This was the title that I was really excited about last week.
Yeah, it did not disappoint. I will just say, spoiler alert, we talked about how late into the season will be till you get my full complete buy-in. Apparently it's episode 3. I am 100% in and back.
Yeah.
This is quite possibly the best episode of Bad Batch I've seen thus far. And it was like this self-contained Pixar short. Like it just felt like this dark Pixar short in a lot of ways, because it starts with the sort of mundanity of Crosshair eating in the cafeteria, and it loops back to that. It circles back to that exact same moment. And to me, that was such a Pixar move, to sort of focus on this very specific sort of mundane moment and circle back to it, but extremely dark. Like this was maybe the darkest episode of animated Star Wars I've seen.
It's up there.
It's very dark.
I would say it's the most adult, and I don't mean that in any way other than like it's just it is not like I was watching this while my wife was watching another show tonight, so I was just like I have my headphones in watching this. She watches all Star Wars. She just doesn't really watch the cartoons, and I'm like, oh, Carly, you're missing out on this. Like I don't like this is like Andor level depth. That I was just like not ready for, and I just feel like it does a trick that I really love in TV and movies where we talked about this before. Like I don't pick up on soundtrack cues all that much. My brain's not really attuned that way, but boy, my brain is attuned for lack of music. And there is like a sparsity of music in certain segments of this show, and especially that opening and closing where it's just Crosshair in like the bunkers and there's no music, and you just hear how quiet and lonely that life is, and it was brilliant and amazing and really made me feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kevin Kiner again, like I'm just feeling like an evolution for Kevin Kiner, an evolution for Dave Filoni's direction and storytelling. And yeah, Kiner's score, like I always felt like it was pretty sparse in Clone Wars and pretty light touch. Sort of did the thing, and that was it. But I feel like probably since Ludwig Göransson just like, reinvented Star Wars soundtracks, that Kiner's been a little more bold. And oh my gosh, especially the last like 10 minutes, the score is so moody and so beautiful. It's really just carries. It really takes like the narrative to another level, and it was a lot of fun.
There's like kind of these roaring synths a la the Blade Runner 2049 sort of soundtrack towards the end of this episode that just blew my mind. I was like, this is some of the most interesting music we've heard in animated Star Wars, and I think it was almost like Crosshair's theme in the episode. Like I think that's what I'm trying to touch on. I guess the sort of the darkest beat of the episode, it really just revs up in that moment, and really, really gorgeous music playing in this one.
So we did a sort of roundup or a summary last week, but I don't know if we planned on doing it this week. Would you like me to do a quick summary?
Sure.
Ready. I mean, by all means, sure.
Yeah. I don't have one ready, but I was just going to sort of and ah my way through a brief sort of telling of it. But essentially, we following Crosshair this time, and he is thrust back into service. he gets sent out on a mission, matches up with an old friend. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later, but and goes on a mission to convince the planet of Dressix?
Desix?
Desix, sorry. Desix.
Desix.
And that they are now under Imperial control and they're a holdout.
Well, it's kind of like the inciting incident is kind of like an Imperial regional governor is captured and held hostage by the actual governor of Desix, and Vice Admiral Rampart then sends Crosshair to deal with the threat, knowing Crosshair's sort of tinge or dark side sort of tinge, his willingness to do the worst, and so that's something that I really clocked this episode.
His love of tyranny,
immorality,
It's like when I'm being told what to do, I never have to think about the morality issues. I can just kill people, which is like what I'm really, really good at. Yeah.
Another trick this episode plays that I love is that you get to the action scenes pretty late into this episode, maybe the second half, and they're beautifully directed and really astounding, and you're sitting there like almost fist pumping, and then like halfway through I'm like, I'm getting excited for the bad guys.
Yeah.
And it's such a great little mind bleep for a second where you're just like, ugh.
Well, they are fighting clankers, so I think it's okay.
But Clanker's on the right side,
100%.
right? Clankers have been reprogrammed for the right side. Yeah, but it's weird. It's a weird feeling. Yeah.
For stormtroopers, and it's a little easier because they're essentially still wearing their like clone armor, a lot of them. But it's like, it flips on its head a little bit. But it's weird because you're right. It's exactly the same as like a million Clone Wars episodes. It's like, okay, commanders are out there. Here are the clones fighting, squaring off against, battle droids, and off we go. But yeah, it's a visually dark episode. It looks different than other Clone Wars episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
And sort of the major reveal here is that Crosshair is sent to work under a new commanding officer, and that commanding officer is none other than Commander Cody, and he's exchanged the yellow armor for now what looks like gray clone armor, and he's got these sweet antennas that sort of stick out of his head and his shoulder there. So cool to see Cody back in the picture. Like, this is, I think we've all been waiting to see, certain clones, reappear in the canon, and he's one that he's one that must be inherently good, given how much time he spent with the most righteous of the Jedi in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, he must be good, and we see that goodness shine through in this episode. And very cool to learn that he goes AWOL at the end of this episode. And when you think about solitary clone, it's like, it's not just the title being solitary clone. It's not just Crosshair being this loner at the lunch table. It's also this one guy who's thinking different. He's going against the grain, who thinks that, we're just droids if we follow orders. We need to, it's great.
Bachelor solitary clone, right? And I love that too. I love a name game too as well.
Crosshairs.
So I just want to
and also just for all of our listeners, just in case, Commander Cody was the top clone in the 212th, which was Obi-Wan Kenobi's detachment, and we've heard a lot about Rex, Captain Rex, which is Anakin's top commander, or captain, and but we haven't heard anything after the fall of the Republic as far as Commander Cody. So fan favorite. It's good to see what he's been up to.
Yeah. Interesting that he's like Black Ops now, or whatever he's doing. It doesn't seem like he's in any sort of division anymore. It seems like he's now just running these sort of like these missions for the Empire.
Yeah. And again,
so I want to confirm. I just wanted to confirm for myself and for our listeners, because you guys are much better with the clones than I am. I feel bad. It feels almost like racist for me to be saying this. I get them mixed up quite a bit.
What are they?
But I'm like, yeah. But I'm like, so like everything's I'm like, all right, I know Cody is Anakin. Like I got everything down up to about Order 66, and then my brain goes a little fuzzy, and I think that's because the timeline is a bit fuzzy. So, and I think I confirmed this, but I just want to confirm with you all This is as far as we've seen in Cody's story, correct? Like
Correct.
we don't know what happens to Cody past this point. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that.
The last time we saw Cody was I think in Revenge of the Sith. I don't even know if he was in season 7 because we focused so much on the 501st with Rex.
Well, what's the scar that he has that is clearly affecting his inhibitor chip? Wasn't that season?
Was he in
7?
Oh,
I can't remember.
Here we go. This is exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Here we go.
Into the vaults of.
I know we're trying to get better at this, people.
I mean, I thought you were going to say that you may have thought that was like Wolf or another commander who wore gray in the past, because the gray is what threw me, and sort of I could see that being a sort of confusion an audience could have identifying clones, but we have to take it for for his title. It's Cody, so he's just wearing gray now, and I don't
think he had his inhibitor chip removed, because he shot at Obi-Wan. So I think that's there. I think that's just a scar in his head. You don't see Cody's face often. You see it in the movie. I think right before that scene, he has his helmet on. But I'm pretty sure that was season 7 was just 501st.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, nothing else other than like a mission to Kashyyyk, but that doesn't have anything that mission to Kashyyyk happened between episode 3 and what we just saw, but it doesn't have anything to do with like anything. It seemed like it was just a standalone quick.
Okay. Well, I love that stuff. I want to know I love the timelines. I want to know where people are in relation. And Cody's a fun character, man. He's definitely a fave of mine. He had like cool armor. This is almost it. I think he had like more of like a visor with blinders on it with the yellow armor. But I think the Empire has just gone monochromatic. It's just white, black, and gray. And they've allowed him to keep clone armor, but he's just had to paint over. They're no longer the 212th. He's just doing whatever they tell him to do. And it's funny. We do get a lot of like in the cafeteria shots. We hear some chatter from some other clones, and they're very worried. They don't know what their life is going to be now. They don't know if they're going to have a job, if they're going to have a career anymore. They're worried about being replaced, and they should be.
Yeah. I mean, you also see Phase 1 Stormtrooper armor in this episode, which was standout moment for me. It was just like, I don't think we see that. I don't think we've seen that armor yet in this. Have we? Yeah, it looked awesome, and it was obviously like the Ralph McQuarrie sort of prototype concept art for the Stormtrooper. I was very pleased to see that. That was, I think, my standout moment is just seeing that armor. But the clones, very much are kept in the Phase 2 armor, and it seems like they're all Rampart's sort of given up on them. He even thinks that they're not to be trusted, and that they're faulty, and that they're not going to follow orders, and most of them are going to go AWOL at some point.
No. They're clearly trying not to integrate. They're just, I think we talked about this in maybe it was the last episode. We're talking about like the goal is for them just to keep putting these dangerous emissions and letting them die out, which is what we see in this, right? We see a majority of the clone troopers that are put on this mission do not make it out alive. Yeah, literally.
Nova.
Yeah.
Pour one out for Nova.
Oh, poor Nova.
Yeah, and I
mean, also he kind of lived up to his namesake, right? He kind of went Nova.
You can't say it wasn't set up, right?
It also, I mean, I don't have a lot of notes, but I was like, when they sent Governor Groton out there, they sent him with all of 8 stormtroopers. They're like, this
super menacing sort of arrival scene, and then he just is immediately taken hostage. I thought that was kind of a fun reversal.
It's pretty great.
Like, what did they like? Didn't you want to send more? No, I guess not. And
to your point, Adam, I think you brought up a few episodes ago about how you're not so certain that Andor didn't ruin Star Wars. Like, I feel like
I think I said that off air, but we could bring that on
constantly analyze the disparity between like this sort of storytelling and Andor, and mainly because it's exploring the same sort of deep, like dark themes of this new sort of totalitarian regime taking over the sort of nascent empire, the its beginnings, and all the tyranny that's occurring, and but it's cartoonish. Obviously, it's for kids, but I'm saying like, it's just so like the regional governor, it just feels very cartoonish in comparison to a lot of the ISB personnel in Andor. Obviously, this is an animated show. I get it. But Rampart, I would argue, could slide in and out of Andor. Like, he is well written enough that and just the acting, this sort of like sneering, wry, just sort of, I don't know, always keeping his plans up his sleeve. That's such an Andor sort of character in a lot of ways. And Rampart is probably the only character I can imagine maybe going between the shows and the animated.
I agree. Or even Crosshairs or Cody. Like, I here's the thing. Like, I think we live in a post Andor world in Star Wars. And what I said flippantly off air about Andor ruining Star Wars is just like, it is now like, it shows us how, I don't know, how real Star Wars can get, and it can be shows for adults, and I don't mean that by any violence or gratuity of any kind, of just the storytelling that's there and the depth of the storytelling. And I feel like this episode really played around in both those worlds, right? Like, there were moments where it felt like Andor, and then you're right, Grant, there were moments where it felt like
I would argue Groton feels like, if you want to see sort of tonal shifts there, it's like Groton feels very cartoonishly bad, and then Rampart feels I guess there's more depth to he's more three-dimensional as a bad guy, and just well written. And I will just say too is like, so when you get Ames, right, like who refers to as the true governor of Desix, Ames, right, like spoiler alert, we'll just skip to the end, the part where Crosshairs kills her, like, you're watching that scene, and I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to speak for you all. I don't think there was any surprise how that scene played out. Like, you sitting there just waiting for Crosshairs to kill her. But at the same time, that scene was really masterful storytelling, where you're having one action take both characters in the same setting, going off on adjacent or actually perpendicular, I think, not even parallel, perpendicular story points, right? Because they're going in opposite directions, completely away from each other. Where like in that moment, Cody decides to leave, and in that moment, Crosshair decides to kind of he's all in.
His moment to
we see
he's like, this is great. This is going to clear up my name, and they're going to know I'm a good soldier if I follow this order.
Yeah.
They'll know I'm in, and I'll be back in the Empire's good graces. And it's left to us to wonder if Crosshair learned anything from Cody's actions. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I feel like Cody was like, I don't
think so either.
Like, okay, chump, see ya.
I think we got to that. We got to the Kylo Ren issue at this point with Crosshair, where it's just like, he has done so much. It's hard to see redemption in his, other than a sacrifice play at this point. Like, I don't think we get a happy ending for Crosshair one way or the other.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to see some sort of gray area there, instead of like, it's just been done so many times with the sacrifice play, like, where it's like he comes back around, he understands he made mistakes, or he understands he was following the wrong thing, but it just took him longer to get there. And he doesn't get feted as a hero, but but has something else.
I kind of want him Slim Pickens riding the bomb down. Like, I kind of want him by the end just being like the big bad, all in, there's no good left in him. Like, that's kind of where I want him to go.
Yeah, it makes sense, because it's the Bad Batch is the vehicle to tell the story on both sides of this conflict.
Yeah,
and we know Crosshair, and but that's the difference between Crosshair and the rest of the people. I also thought that that scene with Tawny Ames, the director, I forget what her honorific was in that city or planet. I
think she was the governor of it.
She kept calling herself the true governor, or like the governor. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, I mean, two people moving in separate directions, but the fact that it was Cody, I like, because I've watched all of Clone Wars a couple times. You feel the gravity of all the adventures that Cody's been on, and how much he's learned from Anakin and Obi-Wan, and his humanity that he took out of war, and his experience, and him being responsible for men's lives and troopers' lives. And then you've got Crosshair super narrow sort of sociopathic like focus. But if it was like Hunter instead of Cody, I don't think it would have the same gravity, even though,
No.
And back to the Bad Batch being a sort of vehicle to explore the clones. That standoff with the actual governor at the Ames at the end, and sort of the execution that occurs there, and Cody's whole sort of struggle with that moment, that felt like the logical next step in understanding clone thought progression after the rise of the Empire. Like, yeah, they were brainwashed for Order 66, and somehow they were able to rationalize that after the fact. But now to see this governor just turn on the locals of this planet, just be the lawful evil person in the room, and then them just witness that, like you said, Ben, they've built up humanity during the war. They're now going to start to question things. And so this just felt like, again, to what, this being a masterful story, this just felt like the logical next step in exploring the clones and now where they go from here. And so I thought this episode was just like one little step in the infographic towards understanding the clones and their evolution. And I thought that's what this episode felt extremely meaningful, whereas other episodes feel like fetch quests and little bounties and underworld activity and stuff like that. This felt very meaningful.
This series is the extinction of the clones, right?
Yes.
Like that's what this show is. And it took me a while to figure out what the show is. And I will say this probably every episode when this show is announced, I'm like, fine. Like, why are we doing this? And then it has, not that it needed to do this, not that it's necessary or responsibility to do this, but it has justified its existence to me constantly of just saying like, no, like we like, these are humans. These are humans that this entire prequel trilogy is surrounding, right? That we just take for granted in the movies at times, right? That like really justifying like, no, this is a, I mean, I don't want to use the word too loosely, but it is a genocide of an entire species in a way that we're watching through the Clone Wars into the Bad Batch. Like it is really, this episode shook me, and I know that's such a like a whatever way to talk about things, but like just realizing last season, oh no, like the Empire is just gonna send them out there to be cannon fodder, and then literally the next episode is like, watch us make them cannon fodder, and they like Filoni, or I didn't see who directed this, but they did not blanch away from, like, in a way that I felt like in the Bad Batch when you lose in the Clone Wars, when you lose a clone, it was cartoony, it was whatever, like they held and they had screams and they had horror. Like it was horror elements when these clones died, right? Like you felt it.
That's a really good point. And off of that, you said why, and we don't pump Lucasfilm's tires that much, but for Andor, we said why, for Obi-Wan, we said why. And every time, there are really good creative minds at Lucasfilm and with the directors and the storytellers that will like spend a lot of time answering why. And they did it in really inventive ways. And, this story about the demise of the clones is now I'm like, of course it's essential. And Filoni's has been really good about playing up the tragedy of the clones. Be like, don't forget about these guys. And especially in season 7 and later seasons of Clone Wars, he's done that, but like same thing. And so now this story is essential. This, same thing with Obi-Wan. It was like, well, why would you tell the story? And now I'm like, oh, well, actually this makes a lot of sense. Like when did he finally turn into the person that was, come to terms with his fight with Anakin and like, and Andor, it's like, oh my gosh, the birth of the rebellion is like the coolest story. Granted, the storyteller did a lot to do with, a lot to make it a viable story, but they did a great job.
No, I agree. I realized with Obi-Wan, kind of the second time I rewatched some of it and I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh, we never saw his apotheosis story, and this is what that series is his apotheosis story, right? Which is just like the end of his hero's journey in a big way, as much as we see at the end in episode 4. But so I think you're right. I think they've done such a good job with each of these series, telling you the why through story, right? Not with just like online saying, no, this is why it's important. Like, no, just tell us the story, and the story justifies it. I will also say the other thing this episode does, I think is really thoughtful, is like through all of this and through the action scene, it also demonstrates how scary and how big of a bad Crosshair can be.
Oh yeah.
he is the most dangerous clone I think we've ever met. Like, they show him take down a tank by shooting down its barrel. That they do the mirror trick thing that he does again, and that is frightening.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just he hit the mirror. It was like he hit the mirror and then it ping-ponged off of like 3 droids and then killed the commander droid. And it was like,
oh yeah, that was such a sweet shot. Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically Bullseye from the Marvel comics, but that's all right.
But there's a place for that. And it makes sense that he would be the bad out of the batch, the baddest of the batch.
Yeah, I have to imagine that his finale is gonna be big, and I wouldn't be surprised if it involves Rampart in a major way. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the last person he lines up in the crosshair, because it's just it just seems like it's going that way in a lot of ways.
I love that. Actually, if he went falling down in like an Imperial complex and just starts taking out all the Imperials, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it feels like maybe he's gonna do a lot of the work for the Bad Batch, not for the Bad Batch, but because he's just keeps getting like slighted and like he just he's just gonna end up.
Crosshair snapped, and like was tired of getting kicked around.
Yeah,
it would probably not end well, but it would be fun to watch.
Or Rampart sends him on a sort of a doomed mission, and he's like, he just knows he was sent to die. Like, I almost thought that's what this episode was, or is possibly foreshadowing, is that the next mission that Rampart sends him on, it's going to be, hey, I don't trust clones or Crosshair anymore. I just need to get rid of all of them, and so I'm going to send them, on these to be cannon fodder on this war torn planet or something. And then Crosshair's like comes back from it somehow, some way, and gets revenge. I would love it to turn into a sort of revenge-o-matic for Crosshair.
Yeah, I mean, they started this episode with him explaining he was for like 34 rotations on Kamino. So he spent a month. For a month he was stuck on Kamino. Before someone found him. And it's like, and he's still stuck around, and like maybe he blamed himself for that, but it's like, that's one thing. But another thing is if it's an obvious suicide mission and if there's 3 or 4 of these suicide missions, I mean, he like kind of can't be killed because he's so overpowered. But like, if he really felt threatened by the Empire, he might bite back. Bite the hand that feeds.
Yeah. I start to wonder, like, we see the solitary clone, right? We see him being around less and less clones. I wonder if by the end of the season, he's the sole clone, the titular solitary clone, walking around this area, and that's when it finally dawns on him, right? Like, they've systematically killed all of my brothers.
Yeah, that would be pretty powerful.
Yeah,
he could be the last one on the ship. Yeah, I mean,
the last one in the Empire.
That'd be wild. Really fun to think about. I think they, I mean, we talked about how the first double episode was really just getting you back up to speed on what Bad Batch is about. And then now we're starting to get a sense of what this season will be about. And I think this was a really heavy note to start with, because this is essentially really the start of the season. But it'll be exciting to see where it goes from there. I mean, obviously we're going to see the rest of the batch going on their missions. Are they going to start fighting the Empire? Are they meet Crosshair in the middle again somewhere, or?
Yeah, will they cross paths with Cody, and then will Cody join the Bad Batch, and then will Crosshair get FOMO and attack and clash with the Bad Batch again, and be like, return to his brotherly ways after having seen Cody sort of join them and see that there really is there's a lot of truth to what the Bad Batch think, and leave the Empire and join them again. Like, who knows what's going to happen with Crosshair, but I have to imagine that arc is revving up towards something major. That's going to happen.
I hope we see more Cody. I mean, they could easily just be like, that was Cody, he went AWOL. I wanted to talk to you guys about this because I kind of worried that he was like that. Vice Admiral Rampart said he went AWOL, and now you can see my air quotes if you're watching on YouTube. But
look at that. Yeah, you can see all our air quotes.
Holding a chihuahua, so I can't use the other air quote. You can see that too. But I was wondering if they killed him, if Rampart actually just killed Cody, and he was like, oh yeah, he went AWOL, no one knows where he is.
Yeah, I think I may have seen trailer material where like
we see him.
Yeah, so I won't say
You gotta be careful of trailers.
Yeah. No, I'm just they look like there's some yellow paint going around in some trailer material I saw.
Great, because like Rex is kind of spoken for. He sort of has his own path with like Rebels, even though we're not quite there in the timeline, but we know he goes fishing for sandworms with Wolf, at some point. So
I think okay, so we needed to broach this topic at some point, which is just fan service. I feel like you get greatest hits with the droids in this episode. Like Dave.
Yeah,
Dave.
Every
all the tricks in the book,
droid,
like,
other than B1 or B2. Yeah.
Dave greatest hits Filoni brings out all the droids for this episode, and I loved it. But I'm also thinking I
don't remember seeing a single droid in this episode. Oh, you mean the battle droids, like the battle droids?
Like,
the battle droids. Ben, what episode did you watch? No, battle droids. All the battle droids.
It was a roll call. You're right.
Except you don't get super battle droids. I guess you get.
That's the one we didn't get.
Special forces.
I did love seeing the droidicas. Like I always forget about them, and I'm always like, oh, they are intimidating. Like I always forget how scary they actually are.
One clone gets like shredded when the first one rolls.
Yeah. What were the spider like? Were there what are they called? See, again, I swear I've watched Clone Wars twice through. But I can never remember the ones that were crawling on the walls and jumping down on people.
God,
are those like
they're in Battlefront 2?
Yeah,
are they a million times? Are they droid commandos? Is that what they are?
Yeah, they're droid commandos.
Okay.
Yeah, you get those guys. It felt like levels in a video game too. It was like B1s, droidicas, like droid commandos, commander droid. But the whole thing, I don't think there's any fan service that Dave Filoni is afraid to entertain. You know what I mean? I think he's willing to try to exactly. I'm trying to frame it in a nice way, because I think he does know what the fans want, and he does try to deliver. And with Cody being in the picture, I think a lot of fans would like to see Cody interact with Obi-Wan again. I think that's what like a lot of fans want to see, is sort of like them reconnect, because you see their friendship, you see a glimpse of it in live action, like in the films, and it's like, what would happen if they reconnected in some way? You know what I mean? Like to me, that's I think sort of a fan service approach that I bet Dave Filoni could tackle. Honestly, if anyone could do.
And we do get that cool scene in Obi-Wan, right? Where on the Neon Planet, he does run across an old clone.
Cody in that series by name.
He doesn't need to. Theoretically,
not by name, but I think he says I worked with. I think he kind of acknowledges Cody's existence without calling out by name. I believe
that would be fun. I mean, listen, I have no problem with fan service. I mean, when it's overdone, you're like, okay, like it's a little immersion breaking, but I always love it. There's a part of me that just like, if I saw Obi-Wan in the series, I would be stoked. Or just like with Cody, to have some closure on that story would be wild.
Totally. Yeah, that's almost the closure. Just a fun sort of like,
I'm sorry I tried to kill you.
It would add to both their tales. Yeah.
But I like that type of fan service to me is like, it's character and plot driven, so it doesn't bother me. It's like when, not to like call out Rogue One, but like when Dr. Evazan walks by, I'm like, that's the moment I remember Thea going, really? Yeah. That was like the one moment for some reason that really bucked me when it came to fan service. I still remember.
But it had to keep its perfect mirror image of A New Hope, and like that was, I bet, probably to the minute.
That's right. I'm sure it lines up to the minute. Yeah.
When you saw those two. So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Rad. Sad to see pour some Jawa juice out for Tawny Ames. She was a great character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we barely knew you.
Voiced by Tasia Valenza. She did a fantastic job. She was
great.
He actually gives a nice little soliloquy at the end, where the reason why she's rejecting the Empire is because she was a separatist. She mentioned Count Dooku's
Dooku.
Dooku was right.
Dooku was always right.
One thing we could talk about is Dooku's legacy in the eyes of the galaxy is like the Separatists are like, he's a martyr, probably. They're just like, oh, they killed him. And,
and he predicted the rise of the Empire. Right? Yeah. There you go.
Instrumental in bringing about. Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty fun. But then she mentions that her and Nita Bonteri created a peace treaty. They offered a peace treaty to the Empire,
forgot about that.
To the Republic, and it was rejected. Which is like they wanted to non-violently end the war, and of course Darth Sidious, as Chancellor Palpatine, was like, no, that's not in the plans.
Doesn't really work in my plans.
Martial law is kind of nice for me.
Pretty good. I got this whole Empire thing about to start, and that would put something in there. So that was a huge reveal.
I also like the Jedi were name checked in this episode. Like Crosshair even calls out that the Jedi were evil or whatever, and the
traitors. I think,
traitors. And I just really liked that. I like that the word is still being said. Like, I'm worried that the Jedi are like, I know there's a big push in sort of ancillary material to explain that Sidious tried to sort of squash the Jedi, even remove statues, iconography, everything to sort of just diminish their name and their organization, sort of the erasure them from the galaxy. And I like that the word is still being said, and almost like I think that's kind of, those are the fun stories, is to hear where the whispers of the Jedi are happening. Those are the stories I want to witness.
Yeah, I like this idea, like the Jedi being whispered about in the hushed tones, because it's not, you don't mention it in polite company, right? Like, you don't know who's listening, and that's a dangerous word to be throwing around out there. Yeah, no, I like that too. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a question for you guys, and
Sure.
I have an answer to this, but I want to hear what you have to say. Does Commander Cody think he killed Obi-Wan Kenobi? And we might have brought this up in a previous episode.
I think so. I think he does.
I don't think so. I think he says something about
go for
another sweep in Revenge of the Sith, right? Like, does he say something about doing another sweep of the lake bed below, or something like that?
And also,
I don't know.
I mean, so
or double your efforts or something like that. He says, like, I don't know.
You find him.
I feel like he doesn't think they got him, or they haven't found a body, so it's like he can't confirm.
That sounds right. And then also, I mean, Obi-Wan does send out the message to all the Jedi, and I don't know how. Actually,
those are
clones. They certainly wouldn't play it for the general population.
That's what I'm trying to think. Is I don't think anyone knows that he survived, right? Not that they think he's dead, but I don't think it was probably a news report. I will say that. So here's like the Wikipedia entry. Eventually, a clone paratrooper reported that a corpse couldn't be recovered and expressed his doubts that anyone could survive such a fall. Cody, seemingly convinced that the Jedi Master had perished, orders men prepared for departure. Yeah. So that's kind of the interaction at that moment. Okay. So it seems like he's just like, could be dead, but assumes he's dead. And no evidence to the contrary, if you think from his perspective. So he probably assumes that he killed Obi-Wan. Yeah, is my guess. Well, but I don't know.
Fun. Yeah, that could be fun. Harder to get him to cross paths if he thinks he's dead. But I don't know. I'm excited to see more Cody if in fact that is what happens.
Yeah, we don't know where Cody's journey is going to take him, right? Like, he could end up on Tatooine for some reason. Who knows?
Sorry to bring it back there. You guys are all making amazing points, and my mind is wandering. This is fun. This is my favorite thing to do, is think about all the little intricacies and how these things play together.
How it all wrap into one another. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just want to praise the sort of lighting and just overall animation and the production, like the sets, the actual environments that they built were gorgeous. Like, in Bad Batch, it just almost feels like this is the conceptual ground that maybe future live action projects can take from. Like, just some of the architecture they invent for these environments are just gorgeous, and the lighting is amazing. And like, if anything, I just hope the live action can sort of like that sort of those environments and the lighting can spill over into live action, because it's so well.
Yes. Desix gave me Star Wars tingles it seemed like a Star Wars place, and it actually reminded me randomly of Kijimi from Rise of Skywalker. It was something about multiple levels, and you had people like coming in and out of doorways, like, and so I know that was on an asteroid. I think Kijimi was on like a floating asteroid.
Yeah, this was like a red dust planet, though. This was
but this is like a dust planet. But something about it reminded me of that kind of setup, and it just really felt like it felt fully realized as an environment, and like the fact that they're wearing breathers and stuff.
Yeah.
I really loved just the little world building just through the environment that was there.
Yet another castle. It was sort of a citadel. That this main thing.
Yeah.
Long walkway. It was designed like a medieval castle, a lot like actually Dragonstone. If you're a Game of Thrones dork,
totally,
Dragonstone vibes, which I love. It was a great location. I love that they're giving us new locations. Like more, give us new stuff.
Yeah, and Rampart's office. Come on, that office is amazing.
Great, good.
Yeah.
That view.
He's a high-ranking guy. That is a corner office view right there in Coruscant.
That's a sweet office.
So all right, answer me this, and this might be something we should know. That place where they show the war memorial for all the like clones lost, I assume.
Oh yeah, with like the proto bash on the.
I was I was so curious about that. Yeah,
so like, is that Coruscant, or is that like another military base location? Obviously, it's not. Kamino's gone, so they're no longer staging there.
That's funny. I assumed it was Coruscant, but I don't know.
Yeah, I want to think it's Coruscant.
Certain.
I want to think it's like where the clones have been staging there since Attack of the Clones or whatever.
So. It's Imperial City. It's the center for military operations, and that's referred to as the first battle memorial where they were.
Wait, so that memorial, it didn't look like Orobesh. It looked like a different scripture, though. Like it looked like a different writing.
And actually,
was it?
It was
Jedi's names.
It's clone names. It is the first battle. It was a commemorative memorial in honor to the many clone troopers who died during the first battle
it would be
of the Clone Wars on Geonosis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. So that's what it was. So it's where it showed up in a couple episodes of Clone War. Apparently, the Jedi who knew too much and the wrong Jedi, and now it's in this one, the Solitary Clone. So that's what that is.
Yeah. That was beautiful and heartfelt, and like something everyone can appreciate. With
super cool,
and the fact that was where a lot of really heavy moments happened. Also, just the way it was symbolic, and there was no dialogue, but Cody and his clone troopers were being picked up in one shuttle, and a bunch of Phase 1 stormtroopers were being dropped off in another shuttle.
That's my favorite scene of the episode. Actually, I think some sweet music is playing.
Yeah,
and you're seeing this sort of occupation of what did we say this planet was? Dexis or something? I don't know what. Yeah. And so we're seeing the occupation by those Phase 1 stormtroopers. Just the music, everything about that scene. I think Crosshair looking out over it before they take off. Yeah, that was just such a cool scene. And it's kind of cool to see like these I guess moments in the Imperial campaign. It's like they took over this planet, and you're actually seeing the deployment of troopers, and you're seeing them occupy the planet as a kind of like nice button for the episode. And I was like, ooh, I hope we get more of those. Let's check in where the Empire stands at the end of the episode going forward, because it's so much fun to get those rollouts and those sort of like big sort of vistas, and those it almost feels like Lawrence of Arabia in those moments where it's like super wide and you're seeing the takeover of a planet. And it's like I really hope we get more of those going forward.
Totally,
man.
I love it.
Man, absolutely. Well, all right. Why don't we call it? That was we did a whole bunch of coverage on that that episode. We actually almost matched the runtime of the episode.
Nice. Yeah. That's what we aim to do.
Yeah, nice. Pretty good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
episode was in our crosshair.
Oh.
I mean, to be fair, it's usually like
I'll see myself out.
I'm not even gonna. Well done.
Shut down the transmission.
Next week, episode 4, which I don't have the name in front of me. But we also may have some other news. I think I've heard rumblings that a new trailer for Mandalorian might be dropping tomorrow night.
That'd be fun. Be good to see that.
During the old sports ball.
I'm getting close to blackout on trailers, but I'll check that out for sure. And then also, maybe we might dip back into the High Republic at some point. I think there's an audio book out, The Battle of Jedha.
Yes,
that's
And,
right.
we should
we should totally do that.
It's been out for a little while now, so people probably have heard it. And I'm looking forward to that because there's been a lot of movement towards the title there, the actual Battle of Jedha, which should be fun. So if you're into the High Republic, we'll talk about it. And if you haven't listened to the High Republic, you should check it out. It's good. I just subbed
you're missing out.
High Republic subreddit, and it's very active. People are super into that.
Good.
Which is cool. They're like a lot of people getting into it, a lot of people, checking it out, wondering like phase 1, phase 2. And, you don't need to watch or read all of phase 1 to get phase 2. It actually happens before.
No.
But, it's a good time. So I'm looking forward to getting back into all that. But all right, why don't we wrap it up? Thanks so much for listening and or watching on YouTube. There is links, I think, for vice versa in both of these on whatever platform you're on. So, yeah. Oh, actually, it's going to play on the credits, too. If you're looking, you can see our link tree and all that.
I'm pointing to the many links that will be super.
Indeed. But, so we're going to do it. But thanks very much, everyone. Have a fantastic, fantastic week, and we'll talk to you next week. May the Force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorldNews on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you, and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.